Hello, everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and I'm doing a video about Matt Lauer because it hit close to home. That said, I want to make clear I'm not here to defend Matt Lauer. I don't know Matt Lauer. I don't really know what happened, but I want to break down what we do know. And I also want to make it clear that I'm not here to condemn his accuser because I also don't know if she's telling the truth. The sad reality is right now in this culture, and especially some of my audience here, that I want to make crystal clear. I never, ever, ever am going to make a place to say that women are liars and men are innocent, and that we must wait for women to prove it. No, we have to believe all people, but that's not just women. We have to believe men too. And in this instance today, the Matt Lauer situation has blown up bigger because now he's being accused of rape, and he is categorically denying it. So what do we do as a society to report this and react to it is really what I want to talk about. Before I get into sort of what's happening and where we stand today, it's important we go back and remember what happened. Back in November of 2017, NBC fired him, and they went on air and broke the story live. And I remember this story. This was obviously I was watching this very closely because obviously I'd been going through my own issues, and I remember just how legitimately shocked and heartbroken they seemed to be as they did the story. And now let's just play a quick bit so we can remember together.
You know, for the moment, all we can say is that we are heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for Matt. He is my dear, dear friend and my partner, and he is beloved by many, many people here. And I'm heartbroken for the brave colleague who came forward to tell her story, and any other women who have their own stories to tell. And we are grappling with a dilemma that so many people have faced these past few weeks. How do you reconcile your love for someone with the revelation that they have behaved badly? And I don't know the answer to that.
Look, I think they handled it pretty well, actually. The other one to look up someday, if you really want to see how to handle this the best, was Colbert sort of reacting to Les Moonves. But check that out on your leisure. But they handled this well because they clearly seem shook. They admitted their loyalty to Matt, their friendship, and that hurt them. And then also making it clear that they stand by the person who's coming forward because they don't want to just deny them, and that's what you should do until we get more information. He was let go, though, for inappropriate workplace behavior. And Matt Lauer himself apologized some days later, acknowledging this. There's no words to express my sorrow and regret for the pain I've caused others by words and actions to the people I've hurt. I'm truly sorry. As I am writing this, I realize the depth of the damage and disappointment I've left behind at home and at NBC. Some of what's being said about me is untrue and mischaracterized, but there's enough truth in these stories to make me feel embarrassed and ashamed. I regret that my shame is now shared with the people I cherish dearly. Repairing the damage will take a lot of time and soul searching, and I'm committed to beginning that effort. It is now my full-time job. The last 2 years have forced me to take a really hard look at my own troubling flaws. It's been humbling, and I am blessed to be surrounded by the people I love. Thank them for their patience and grace. And look, I can relate to this because it's very similar to the words I put out there. And I don't want to compare myself to Matt Lauer because I don't really know all of what he's done. And there are other accusations that came in. There were rumors of a button under his desk that locked people in his office, which NBC denied and Matt Lauer has denied. There's no evidence of that button, but that myth has now gone whispered down the lane, and it's used to vilify the narrative of Matt. But what we clearly know about Matt is he was cheating on his wife with colleagues at his office. He was sleeping with coworkers, and there was clearly a power dynamic, especially with him sleeping with people who worked under him, that is questionable, absolutely. And it can, I'm sure, create some sort of misunderstanding between a boss and their employees of what the power dynamics are or what are promised. And that to me is where he crossed a line. He got caught, and women weren't comfortable by it, and he lost his job for it. And I don't think that's wrong. Just in the instance of mine, where sleeping with my fans wasn't what my community was happy with. And, leaving my job wasn't really what I had trouble with. It's what I have trouble with is the fact that he's apologized. He hasn't been accused of anything with as close to assault. And he's moved on and done his own thing. He's sort of been quiet for 2 years, focused on his own thing. And some say he's not canceled. He has plenty of money. And that's a valid point of it's a little hard to be canceled when you have 10 houses and can afford to never work again. I didn't have that luxury. Some people don't. And that's the difference between sort of celebrities being canceled and sort of more everyday people. He has an opportunity to sort of really do the work if he wants to, and I hope he does. And judging by the statement, I was hoping he did. I was going to give him the benefit of the doubt to go fix what he was doing, just like I fixed what I was doing, to not be a scumbag who's cheating on his family. I think that's an important thing to come clean on and learn about yourself. So anyway, that's where we left Matt Lauer, and there were obviously a lot of people jumping to conclusions saying he was a jerk and not liking him. I didn't really love him as an interviewer either. I agree with Tom Cruise. I thought he was a little glib at times. And so, I think he got drunk with power, and I think he just lost focus of what mattered, and I hoped he was going to find his way. But today, the news broke that Ronan Farrow, the journalist who took down Harvey Weinstein, is releasing his book, Catch and Kill, and he's marketing his book right now. And in order to market his book, he needs some salacious details to sort of let out to the press to get attention. And one of which was the fact that Matt Lauer actually raped the NBC colleague who came forward originally, and that NBC has been covering it up. Context to this is important because you got to remember NBC is the person who is the outlet that killed the Weinstein story and wouldn't let Ronan Farrow release it. So there's a lot of contempt here between Ronan Farrow and NBC because Ronan's in his whole book is sort of writing a whole narrative that NBC tried to kill the story because they had negotiations with Harvey Weinstein and they didn't want to risk the relationship and they were covering up their own ill behavior. And that topic and that sort of breakdown and investigation is important and I think is good for Ronan to break down. But where things get a little questionable for me is this woman has now, who was anonymous previously, has come forward and unanonymously now clarified in her story and said that it was actually sexual assault. They were at the Sochi Olympics. They were both drunk. That's not an excuse, by the way. It's not an excuse, but it adds to the context. She revealed this. And after a lot of booze, came back to his room twice. One to get her press credentials because he jokingly took them from her. And then a second time because she came back because he asked her to. And she didn't think anything nefarious or would happen based. I had no reason to suspect Lauer would do anything but friendly based on our prior experience. He then apparently allegedly pushed her against the door, kissed her, and then pushed her onto the bed, flipping her over, asking if she liked anal sex. She said that she declined several times. According to Neville, she was in the middle of telling him that she wasn't interested again when she just did it. Farrow writes. Lauer, she said, didn't use. This gets gross. I'm not going to get the details. You guys can look this up. But it hurt, and it was non-consensual. She says, it was non-consensual in the sense that I was too drunk to consent. It was non-consensual in that I said multiple times that I didn't want to have anal sex. In the letter, Lauer responded, I had an extramarital affair with Brooke. It began when she came to my hotel room late in the night. We engaged in a variety of sexual acts. We performed oral, yada, yada, yada. Each act was mutual and completely consensual. He goes on to explain in his own letter that, which I'll link down below so you can read both of these stories and get it all because I don't want to take an hour reading things for you. But he explains why he's been silent and that his silence, he did it for his family's sake to try to like help them move on. But he realized his silence was a mistake because people were just assuming he was guilty and goes on to explain it. He says with the support of his children, he wanted to finally say enough and stand up for himself and defend what was true and what wasn't. And he goes on to sort of explain that Brooke is an opportunist who was trying to make money by selling her own book. She got paid a lot by NBC and now has sort of brokered some deal, he alleges, with Ronan for this book as well to sort of get more attention. Now, look, I don't know if that's true, but that's his take on things, and I want to hear both sides of things. He goes on to sort of explain and debunk in his own way sort of that this was impossible. She didn't work under me. She worked for Meredith Vieira, and, she claims our first encounter was assault, yet she actively participated in arranging future meetings and met me at my apartment on multiple occasions to continue affair, something she acknowledged that she did and felt terrible for, which adds to the confusion of this. She says, I was the one pursuing the relationship, yet once it was over, she was the one calling me asking to rekindle it. He goes on and sort of explains, why he thinks that she's clearly lying, or can prove that she's lying. She said she wanted NBC to do the right thing, yet she sought a monetary payment, and 2 years after I was fired, she's stepping forward to do more damage. The reality is, he's vehemently denying it. Saying that nothing in this was not consensual. And he also sort of goes on to say that that the whole story about the button didn't exist. There was no such locking mechanism. It didn't exist. NBC confirmed this fact publicly following my termination. It would have been impossible to confine anyone in my office for any purpose, and I've never attempted to make anyone feel as if they were confined in my office. I've never assaulted anyone or forced anyone to have sex, period. Now, look, this is important. He has denied it. She is saying that's not true, that she felt like he was forced. Today's Show has now gone on record. Matt Lauer's conduct was appalling, horrific, and reprehensible, as we said at the time. And our hearts break out. At the time, that's why he was fired 24 hours of us first learning his complaint, and our hearts break again for our colleague. NBC's taken a hard line to sort of side with the accuser and, make Matt seem like the villain once again. So the issue here is just like, who do we believe, right? Where do we go? And I don't want to get into a he said, she said accusations on both sides. I want to believe them both because I don't know where we stand. Usually in situations like this without proof, we sort of have to assume that it sort of lands in the middle, that both stories are being told in a way that maybe this was an affair that went sour, but maybe he did or maybe he did actually aggressively pursue her more than he should have. The reality is I just don't know. So to accuse him of a criminal act is really dangerous, and it does affect not only him, but his family and his future. So we have to take an accusation like this seriously. And really, again, the whole reason I'm doing this story was because I think the news media is leaning towards just calling him a rapist. It's all over. If you go look at anybody on Twitter, I mean, obviously Twitter's not news, but they're all just, I knew he was a pig and a smug, mediocre broadcaster, but now we also know he's a rapist. And actually, it's just, if you go, you can see it. Everyone is just ripping him apart and assuming the worst. And it keeps going and going. No wonder he's so soft on Trump. He's just that rapist in the he's just like that rapist in the White House. We just go so extreme now and read any accusation or allegation we hear, and we just assume guilt. He has no opportunity to defend himself. His statement isn't shared as widely. And it's just a scary reality that, look, again, I'm not here to defend Matt Lauer. I don't know what's true. I don't know. I'm not trying to play it in the middle, but I have to play it in the middle because we don't know. So I'm not going to condemn either the accuser or Matt because it's important we sort of gather more information. And now that both are sort of have opposing stories, what do you do? When you go to the media, in this day and age of the way the media is sort of gone, they're going to side with the victim, always. And that's, I don't think, fair. It doesn't mean we should be condemning the victim and saying you're lying, but it doesn't mean now that's carte blanche to call Matt Lauer a rapist. I think there needs to be a middle ground here where we sort of can acknowledge, right, let's get more information. And what really bothered me was this particular clip of the Today Show. So they did a breakdown of what happened. They do a news story. Some other reporter came in and did the story. And as they did the story, the story's pretty good at sort of being objective about it. And then they, at the end, feel the need to sort of say, well, we need to reply to this. We need to make our own comment on this because it's important that we react, not just, the news story, which sort of tells both sides. It does give a Matt Lauer denial quote. It does sort of say that she had multiple, she visited more times. They try to report all the evidence or the, the facts that we have as of now. So I think the report, while definitely reading more salacious and leaning towards wanting to say, clearly Matt Lauer did something wrong here, it does attempt to try and show a couple quotes in his defense. But the really telling moment was when Savannah Guthrie and Hoda Kotb come on and sort of do their piece to sort of say to the audience, well, yeah, we know him, so what's our thoughts? And let's listen.
I feel like we owe it to our viewers to pause for a moment. This is shocking and appalling, and I honestly don't even know what to say about it. I want to say that I know it wasn't easy for our colleague Brooke to come forward then. It's not easy now. And we support her and any women who have come forward with claims. And it's just very painful for all of us at NBC and who are at the Today Show. And, it's very, very, very difficult.
I'm looking at you and I'm having a weird moment that we were sitting here just like this 2 years ago. And truth be told, Savannah and I did a little prayer upstairs just before, just to sort of sort out what we were going to do. And I think it's like you feel like you've known someone for 12 years, and I don't know if you guys have ever felt like that. You know someone, you know them, you feel like you know them inside and out, and then all of a sudden, like, a door opens up, and it's a part of them you didn't know. And we don't know all the facts in all of this, but there are not allegations of an affair, there are allegations of a crime. And I think that's shocking to all of us here who've sat with Matt for many, many years. So I think we're going to just sort of continue to process this part of this horrific story. And as you said, our thoughts are with Brooke. It's not easy what she did to come forward. It's not easy at all.
No, and I think I speak for all of us. We're disturbed to our core.
Yeah.
And
So look, they're siding with Brooke, wholeheartedly siding with Brooke. There's no, everything they say is we thought we knew the man. Everything, if you really listen to this and be honest to yourself, they are condemning him live on air. They are saying he did it. We thought we knew him. This horrific thing bothers us to his core. This is not now an affair. This is an allegation of a crime, and we're waiting for the facts. And they're surprised that Matt would do it, but then they sort of just acknowledge that they're shocked and dismayed by what happened. But the reality is, like, what does that mean? Are you actually saying then you as people believe Matt Lauer's a rapist? Because if you're going to be that genuine, then say so, because that's pretty much what you're doing without sort of saying it. And what's really scary and dangerous about media personalities in this sort of new world we live in where you do this is what's going to make people think he's guilty, because they don't know. They weren't there either. They don't know the facts, as they said, but they are condemning him. And I this type of behavior really irks me because I have experience with it. And I'm not going to get into this video yet. I plan to soon. But I want to share one quick moment that I'm pushed by this video a lot. When I was taken out several weeks later, my former colleagues made a What Happened video. And they said this about me.
Andy Signor was fired almost 3 weeks ago after multiple women came forward on social media with allegations of sexual harassment and abuse. This was news that was a shock to all of us. Andy was, for I think everyone here, not just our boss, but someone that we counted as a friend. And we found out overnight that he was not the person that we knew or that we thought he was. And it's taken a lot of time for us to process that, to ask the questions that need to be asked, and to feel comfortable coming forward and just talking to you guys and being able to say everything that is in our brains and that we want to get across.
Now, there's so much to there and unpack, and I'll get to it at some point, because I know a lot of you have wanted me to react to this, because this particular statement, in my case, this isn't related to Matt Lauer, but it is in a way, and that's why I brought this up, is because I know they didn't have all the facts. They absolutely did not have all the facts, and they never reached out to me to try to get any other facts. And as I provided facts years later, and they still have not updated this video is seen by almost 800,000 people. My apology has cracked, I think, 300,000. So that's 500,000 people that they did this to that really endorsed abuse, the word abuse and assault, or not assault, but abuse and harassment. And that included my false allegations of abuse. And so when you come forward and you have the gall to sort of, we're shocked. Yeah, this is not the person we thought they were. We've done what we've done, and we've looked into it, and yeah, clearly we must just believe this person. And all these people that came forward. In my instance, it's complicated, and I'll get into it, but the reality is, whether it's this crew or this crew, they don't know what they're talking about. They just don't know what they're talking about. And you can't know what you're talking about until you talk to both sides. And to condemn someone publicly is really what turns the tide of the community online and society at large to sort of say, oh, well, their friends agree, so they must be guilty. And the reality is, Matt Lauer, just like I was, is guilty of doing some absolutely stupid things. Especially some deeply personal things that are really none of our damn business, let's be honest. But the extent and the details of the rest of it is still up for question of what actually happened. But when you go on air and you condemn like they just did, like Hoda and Savannah, where they clearly have picked a side, I don't know. I think that's really dangerous and slanderous and troubling. If you're going to do that, and I don't know what the truth is, then be more genuine and open to us that we've spoken to Matt. You know what? We don't speak to him anymore. We believe these women because we don't, Matt always felt that way. If you're going to do it, do it. If you're going to act as a friend of his or a colleague that is sort of speaking on the behalf of, I know Matt Lauer, then you got to come clean on why you think that. And you got to make sure you're ready to defend it, not just in public, but then potentially in a court, because this can be liable. This absolutely can be liable when you come forward and you make a statement like this, sort of acknowledging, yep, what happened was crazy and horrific, and that's not the person we knew. Who's the person you knew? You're friends with Matt Lauer, I imagine. Did you reach out to Matt? I don't know. Maybe they did, and maybe if they did, that would add context, and I'd be a little bit more instance in this instance. And I relate to it, and obviously I'm a little more emotional to it because I know in my instance no one did. In this instance, I don't know. I find it hard to believe they probably didn't. They've probably steered clear. They've made an opinion to sort of in the beginning. If you go back and watch that sort of first video we watched together, they seemed much more shocked then. And then we come back to this version, and they're less shocked now. Now they're sort of like, "Yep, we got to just condemn Matt on air," and she seems uncomfortable doing so. She's in a spot where you have to believe women now, and you can't. If she were to go on air saying, "Listen, I don't know, this seems crazy, Matt. That's not the Matt we know," which she sort of says, right? If that's not the Matt we know, but this is horrific, and we have to process this because now apparently he's not the person we thought he was, based off an allegation, guys. That's what's scary here. So. That's what I want to do here. It's like, I'm not here to sort of say that the allegation might not be true. I don't know. I need more evidence from Matt, and I would love for this accuser, if she's going to have the wherewithal to take this public now and to make her name public, which is going to be an onslaught of press and media and things nonstop bothering her, then why isn't she up to then take this to a court of law to pursue it? Because if he really did those things, that's what I want her to do, because I don't want him to do it to anybody else. And I want to make sure we can prove it versus have this sort of, well, the media is going to believe me and I'll just go there. I don't want to deal with the court. That I might lose. These are real serious allegations. And I don't want to encourage or say I don't believe in victims or that assault victims shouldn't come forward. They absolutely should if they want to. But you at least should go to file a police report if you can. I hope this movement has sort of empowered women to do the right thing in that situation, even though it's hard, and shows like Unbelievable Netflix, which again, you guys should watch. It just shows it's really hard for victims. It is. It's really hard. And some victims, I know some victims who have been assaulted and they don't want to go forward. And then they tell someone and they don't get believed. It's a really complicated place we're in. But at the same time, it's really scary when someone is accused of assault and they didn't do it. And they just had a sour affair that they regret. That just changes things. It does for me. And I think this person got her revenge. She got the revenge that Matt Lauer he's not in a position of power. As she told NBC, she wanted what was right. He's not in a position of power. She got paid 7 figures. And he can't come on air. He's not going to be able to do anything. He doesn't have another outlet to be who he was. He has some money to live off of and support his family, and good for his family because they didn't do anything wrong in this. But how much more do we need to do? And if you're really going to come out publicly and accuse him of this, which is a serious crime, and if he did it, I'm horrified, and it's a tragedy and gross, then if you're going to go to the press and open your name up to that whole door and can of worms, I hope and implore that she goes to the police to make sure you follow through to make sure he never does it again. Because if that's how strongly you believe this now and you're able to go forward, then do it the right way, because this is going to hurt somebody otherwise. You're causing damage. And I hope in Matt's case, he can sue for slander back because we have to be careful of false claims. We have to make sure we take all victims seriously, but we also have to make sure we don't just assume that all victims are telling the truth. It's a very complicated place to be in. And I'm still not an expert. I'm still learning myself, obviously, but it's important we have these dialogues. I had someone I spoke to on Twitter who was hammering me hard, and then we spoke privately, and she opened my eyes a lot. And I think because we had that conversation, it made me see things in perspective, and I think she did too. And if we don't have these open dialogues and talking about, look, it's not about not believing women. It's just about believing everybody. And so when somebody like Matt Lauer comes forward and says, from the stake of my kids, this is not true, I didn't do that, it was consensual, we have to pause and say, okay, well, crap, now what? It's important we do that versus, whatever, he's a rapist. That's where we are really lost our way as a society. And no, it's your right to not support Matt Lauer just from the cheating alone. Sign him off, whatever. But the Twitter mob, mob justice, kicking him now continually while he's down for an allegation that we need to make sure is founded now that he's denied it. That's a scary thing that I think we should be careful of as a society. That's my feeling, and that's why I want to get off this rant. And for those who keep asking me about my response to that video, I'm going to do it at some point. I keep hoping they would update it. I keep hoping they'll talk to me and really have a more in-depth conversation so I can learn more from the other side. And I've started to have some conversations with other colleagues to sort of understand where places are. But I'm clearly there's a part of me that's really still bothered by that. You don't go on air publicly and condemn a friend without speaking to them. If you want to come forward then and say, look, I never liked this guy, he's not my friend, then so be it. That's for you. But you can't be friends with somebody and then go do something like that. You just can't. And I did a lot of things wrong, and I put a lot of my old colleagues in uncomfortable, weird positions. It was not easy for them, but they're doing okay right now, and I'm struggling. And that's not to get your sympathy. It is what it is. But I want to at least have the right to have as many people who watch that update watch my video to hear both sides. I think that's a very fair thing to request, and I hope at some point someone over there wises up, and someone out there in the community, because the silence, even with Matt Lauer, the silence right now of people who are just afraid to support him. So like I was a very lone voice out there saying, well, look, I'm not defending Matt Lauer, but do we have all the facts here? Do we know that this is true? That's not a defense on victims. I mean, you know, an offense on victims. It's a, well, what do we have to make sure we hear both sides. It's just, that's what due process is about. You can't just go out and go on trial and have the plaintiff walk up and say, yep, Matt Lauer raped me. Here's why. He did it on this night at the Olympics. It was awful. I cried in my pillow. Okay. And then the judge goes, great, jury, make your verdict. That's not what we can do. We can't allow that. And that's what social media is currently doing. Listen, what she wrote is awful. It's awful, awful, awful. But I wasn't there. And I don't want to say she's lying, but I also don't want to call Matt Lauer a rapist. So what do? I ask you. Let's chime down in the comments. Let's have a civil conversation. How do we do this civilly? How do we not blame the victim or Matt Lauer? How do we find a way to really figure out what to do that sort of can do the right thing here to make sure we're getting all the facts straight and we're not condemning either person without knowing more evidence? I think it's important to have these talks. That's why I would love to go back on that channel just to have the conversation, to talk about what did I do wrong? Okay, yes, here's what I know I did wrong, but let's talk about it. How do we have those conversations so people who are watching me right now hopefully don't make those same mistakes and learn from them? Without this dialogue, without paths to redemption, without giving opportunities for people like Matt Lauer to better himself for the sake of his family, what are we doing? Who hasn't screwed up in their life? Sometimes it's more extreme than others, but you will all find yourself in a place where you make a mistake wrongfully or not even on your own doing, and you will see the other perspective. And I don't wish it on anybody, but we need to try to avoid that to happening to as least many people as possible by making sure we are just open to both sides and not publicly condemning either side, the woman or the man. So anyway, that was my piece in this. Thanks for listening and for bearing through. Please, if you like what you watch here, these types of topics are not always popular in the algorithm. I implore you, please go subscribe, hit that red button if you've gotten this far and you're open to hearing what I say, and the little notification bell so I can bring more videos to you, because the algorithm does not want me to be as honest sometimes as I am. And I just want to be genuine here and talk to you. And I want to have a conversation with you. So you can also hit me up on social media. So follow me there on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. Reach out anytime. I'm always open to hearing other opinions. But thanks again for listening, and I'll be back with more videos soon and some more movie news. Thanks, everybody.